Hey, what's up, fellow guitar maniacs? I'm kpnash, and this is not a foot switch. This is a foot switch. Now, I've designed it to work with amps like Fender Princeton Reverb Reissue, Vibro Champ Reverb Reissue, basically any amp that is compatible with a standard Fender foot switch. And in this video, I'm going to reveal its wiring diagram so that you can build one. No special electronic knowledge is required, only basic soldering skills. Now, what makes it special is that with just one single button, you can control both reverb and tremolo. You can see you have these mini toggles for reverb and tremolo. And depending on this toggle you can have like reverb. This is reverb. This way it is controlled by the foot switch so that you can switch it on and off. In the middle position it's always on, in the top position it's always off. And the same thing goes for tremolo. Plus, this thing has two effect loops, also controlled by the very same single button, which are wired in a way that you can have either effect loop number 1 without reverb and tremolo from the amp, or loop number 2 with reverb and tremolo, of course, depending on the position of these toggles. And it's time to talk about wiring. So the components used within this magic box are the following. T-ring sleeve TRS input jack to connect it to the amp, two on-off-on toggles for reverb and tremolo. Then the main thing is this 4PDT switch. Yeah, we are going to switch 4 different things, namely 2 effect loops, reverb and tremolo, so that's why 4PDT, and then 6 amp style insulated, isolated jacks with switches. Now what about the wiring? Let's start with the ground. So ground is connected as follows. Like this, so basically just connecting grounds of these jacks, then on the other side here and here, and finally to connect ground from input with ground from output, we will need yet one more wire. Now let's connect input and output for our main guitar signal. So we will do it like this. From input to this terminal of the 4PDT switch, and then from this terminal to the output jack. Now let's add one effect loop. We will need to go from here to this terminal, and then from this terminal to these loops out. So what happens if we have a jack here, and our foot switch is switched in a way that these two terminals are connected and these two terminals are connected? Well, easy. The signal from the input will go to this terminal, then within the switch here, then to this effect loop in. From here it will go to the pedal, or to the pedals we have in the loop. Then from the output of those pedals it will come back here, within the foot switch, here, and to the output. But what if we don't have anything in this loop? Well, we would still like it to work. We can always, of course, connect input and output using a patch cable, but would be somehow more convenient to add just a wire like this. Just a wire like this. So that this is how these switching jacks work. If you don't have any jacks inside, then this terminal is connected to this one inside the jack, this is connected to this one, and same here. So if nothing is within this loop, then the signal goes from here to here, then within the 4PDT switch here, since no jack is inserted here, it will go here, and then similarly to the output. And that's how an effect loop works. So let's connect the other one in a totally similar way. So we will go from its input, this time here, then from here we will need to go to the output of the second loop, and finally we are going to connect them with a wire for the case if we have nothing inserted here. And these are our two loops. By tapping on this foot switch, we will be switching either between this green effect loop, if 4PDT is in this position, or we can switch from the green loop to the blue one if it is in this position. Now, reverb and tremolo. Reverb and tremolo are connected to the amp via this T-Pring switch cable and T-Pring sleeve, cable. And the sleeve should be connected to the ground, the amp's ground in this case. So let me do that. It will go here, and we will need to connect these two terminals. Now, what about tip and ring? By the way, it's interesting. TRS, tip, ring, sleeve. And at the same time, conveniently, T stays for tremolo, R stays for reverb. So tip of the foot switch, tip of that amp's connection is going to control tremolo, and reverb ring R is going to control reverb. So let's start with tremolo. We are going to wire tip of this jack to the middle terminal of this on-off-on switch. Basically, this means that if there is no connection to the ground, I mean, if there is no connection between this wire, between tip of this jack and the ground, then the tremolo is going to be on. And the same, by the way, goes for reverb. Now we are going to connect one of these outer terminals of this switch to basically to one of the terminals of 4 PDT. Sorry, wrong color. So it is going to be like this. And the same for R, same for reverb. It will need to go here. The other terminal of the switch, which is basically off, as I've said, for either tremolo or reverb to be off, it needs just to be connected to the ground, so to the sleeve of our input jack terminal. Well, and that's it. So let's review once again its function. For this, let's assume that these toggles are in the switch position, so that tip tremolo is connected via the toggle to the foot switch, and the same for reverb. So what happens if our 4 PDT is in this position? Means that this terminal is internally connected to this one, this with this with this, and this with this. So what happens then? Tremolo is connected to the ground, reverb is connected to the ground. Basically, this means both tremolo and reverb are off. And here we have input connected to the green effect loop, and the green effect loop is connected to the output. Once we tap on this 4 PDT, what happens is now these 4 pairs of terminals are connected to each other, and these ones are disconnected. So both tremolo and reverb lose their connection to the ground and become switched on. And for our effect loops, now it's not the green loop anymore, but instead the blue one. Is connected to the output. Now, drawbacks. Drawback number 1, obviously this doesn't have indication. I consider it a kind of overkill, because in order to add some LED for indication, you will need a power source like a battery or a power adapter. But still, if you need it, you can do that. Like if you have your battery plus and minus, and then you will need a current limiting resistor and the LED itself. Yeah, and you can use one of the still unused terminals of the 4PDT foot switch, and obviously the other terminal of your power source will have to go to the ground. Then what happens is when your 4PDT is in this position, meaning reverb and tremolo are grounded, and therefore are off, there is no connection here, and the LED is not working. But as soon as you tap on the foot switch and you switch to this position, then here this one becomes connected to the amp's ground, and therefore here goes some current to the amp's ground, and the LED starts working. Disclaimer, I haven't tried that, but I believe it might work. Now, drawback number 2 is, since this is basically a true bypass looper, when tapping on this 4PDT, you might get some unwanted popping or clicking sounds. Actually, you have heard some of them on my demos, and frankly, I don't care that much because I'm a rockabilly guy, and rockabilly music means imperfections. But if this concerns you, you can experiment with various pull-down resistors. I would suggest values like 1 megohm or 2.2 megohms. Basically, I would start with placing a pull-down resistor here between the hot terminal of the output and the ground, maybe here on the input side, but beware, these pull-down resistors are going to be in parallel with effects you have in your loops, or just in parallel with each other if you have no effects, which means that you are going essentially to alter the impedance that is seen by your guitar signal, and that might affect your tone. And finally, drawback number 3. As you can see, you are going to have always a ground connection within the foot switch. Now, imagine you have also some pedals in your loop, and then in addition to this connection, you will have a ground connection going here via the loop and back here, which looks actually like a ground loop. So might add some noise. Honestly, with the majority of pedals, it's probably not going to be an issue because the currents are rather small. But with 1 or 2 pedals that I personally have, and I mean those modern kind of digital pedals, not true bypass pedals, something like that, then there can really be some noise added to your signal chain. And that's it about the foot switch. So thank you for watching. One thing though, as you see, I have revealed a wiring diagram for some device that I have designed myself, and I don't mind. If you find it useful, please feel free and build a foot switch or ask someone else to build it for you. Just keep in mind that if you ask a professional pedal builder to design and build a thing like this, they are going to charge you. And let me put it this way, I have seen people charging up to 100 euros or $100 for things like this. So if you really find this footswitch useful, well, I will put my PayPal address down below this video, so you might want just consider donating. Thank you and goodbye.